they come. Welcome, everybody. Here we are. It is the 30th of January, and we are exploring on this Talk Tuesday a topic that is so, pervasive. I think, me and I have so many people, and even if they don't come to us with this particular issue, as we're uncovering things and working with unwanted patterns, we find it. And it's one that really impacts life in so many different ways. Having insecurity in our relationships is something that is painful. It's something that keeps us from true connection. We long for that. We know that it's possible, and yet we feel kind of held off from it, unable to truly experience it. And one of the big reasons why is because of this reason. Me and I have taught on similar subjects. On this subject, we've touched on it here and there, and there's a lot of background that goes with this topic, especially around attachment theory and the way that you were cared for when you were small. And so we can put links to some of those, or you can refer back to some of those videos where we talk about that. But today I want to get really practical. I want to give you some real live things that you can start to think about and do. Okay. Now these are, I've laid them out in steps. Let's see, I've got, I don't know, 4, 5 steps, something like that I really invite you to sink your teeth into. But I also want to encourage you by saying this is an issue, this is a challenge that it's going to be a little bit different for each of you. So how these steps play out for you as you're exploring these issues for yourself is going to vary, of course. It's also an issue that you don't just do this work, turn a little switch and you're like, oh, thank goodness I have overcome all the insecurity. This feels wonderful, right? It's very much a process, one in which we remove the layers, and every layer it feels better. You feel more connection and you see what's possible. But it's also one that really does take a commitment. Okay, you're not going to listen to this and walk away having everything about your relationships changed. And the reason why I'm saying that is not to say that there's not so much value in you being here and you opening up to this discussion. But I want you to know, because if you're going to be successful at it, I want you to know what it really takes. This is a particular area of life that I've spent a lot of my own personal experience in. So as I'm sharing these things with you, I'm sharing not only my experience with other people and their journeys through and to security, but also very much my own. So this is an area I really want to open it up to you guys as well. As we're going through, I really want to field your questions, as personal as you want to get. Is absolutely welcome, because it's easy to hear about these things kind of in theory, but when you take it and the ideas and the theory and the steps, and you really apply it to what you're experiencing and particular situations, we can see so much more clearly how to use it. And so I really want to encourage you guys to be interactive with me to the extent that you want to. The other thing I'll say about being interactive is sometimes you'll take this information away and you'll be working on it later and be thinking about it, journaling, and something will say, oh, I wonder how this applies. Or, you'll have a question at that point after you've started to work with it. And we really welcome those questions as well. In the Facebook group, you can reach out by email as well, because if we're going to make this time together and this teaching really valuable, it's in the application to what you're going through and what you're experiencing on a day-to-day basis. So let's keep that in mind. We can also do follow-up teachings on this subject when you guys provide that feedback of what you're needing, how we can continue this discussion. So let's dive into the topic itself. I'm going to go through, like I said, I tend to be a very practical kind of teacher. That's how I like to learn. There's a lot here, so let's dive in and talk about some steps that you can really start to sink your teeth into, right? And the first one is I want to just invite you to really honor who you are. Who you are in the sense of how you're wired. You know, I mentioned before that this topic very much rests on the attachment topics that we've discussed, right? Your attachment, how you were cared for when you were little, wired you for the way you are in relationships today. And so, sometimes we think to ourselves we're broken and we need fixed. That's why we're insecure. So how do I fix myself? And really, that's not the case, but we can respect how we're wired, right? We're wired from the standpoint of just as humans, we are deeply wired to seek connection, to prioritize connection. And that goes back to the time when we were hunters and gatherers and lived in small tribes. If we were excluded from the group, we most certainly would die, because we needed others. We needed others if we sprained our ankle, if we had a sickness, and just for the sheer companionship. One of the worst punishments that's considered actually by many people cruel and unusual is the solitary confinement for long periods of time, because we were not meant to live that way. We were meant for connection. We're wired for connection, every single one of us. And so then on top of that, you're wired based on your particular experiences, and the experiences of love and affection and caregiving that you were offered as a little one. So you have a particular circuitry when it comes to love. You have certain needs, you have certain sensitivities and certain triggers. Now, we don't go into a relationship and say, okay, here's all the things that I need. So you better figure out how to meet all that, right? Because that's how I'm wired. And that's not necessarily what I'm talking about at all. But for you first and foremost, to respect that and to understand why I may have some of these insecurities. I've described myself sometimes as a feeling like a bottomless pit. Like you can't love me enough. You can't give me enough love, affection, and just tender and care, right? And that's okay. And I've learned, I used to think of that about myself as being weak and needy. And now I see that, wow, because I have that, what I'm going to consider now to be a beautiful gift, I have the ability to offer and to receive, to be a servant of love, or to be a vessel of love, because I have that. So I can take what I used to think of as my bottomless pit, and just see it as, something that is so incredibly abundant, right? This desire for love and connection. So that's really, I think the first step is to explore that a little bit. What are my needs, without judgment, just coming from a place. And please don't, at this point, don't say to yourself, well, who would I ever find that would be willing to meet all of these needs. It's not possible to navigate in this world with so much need. Let's not go there for now. Let's just, step number one, really honor and appreciate and accept, how you come wired from just being an individual, and from the way that you were cared for as a little one. Okay. Step number one. Step number two is to recognize you are worthy of having that love filled, those needs filled. You are worthy of having those needs filled. Okay. We can't have the question of your worthiness hanging out in the background if we're going to try to meet those needs. Okay. We're not going to put those needs on somebody else and say, here you go. You meet all of these needs for me. This is your job. Right. But if you don't feel worthy of that, You're going to be constantly having the question of, you know, I shouldn't have this need, or it's not really possible, or I don't deserve that, right? And that is going to stand in our way every single time. So we need to do some work around recognizing that worthiness. Okay, that worthiness. Think of it, I like to think of it as, love is out there as a force, as an energy, and it wants to be expressed. It wants to be expressed so badly. That's its whole purpose, right? That's what it is here for, in order to run through us and be shared. And so this desire that you have, this deep attraction to connection and to wanting to share with another person, that is, whether it's a child or a parent or a friend or partner, it doesn't matter. You're helping love, right, fulfill its purpose out in the world, to be that channel, if you will. And step number 3 is a very interesting one, but absolutely essential. It is this: you have to take responsibility for yourself and your feelings for getting your needs met. Okay. Now, a lot of people, yes, absolutely. In the chat, it says big obstacle in the worthy arena, not judging my needs. Yeah. And hopefully, as we have this discussion and we can understand, where these needs came from, and that they're beautiful. And that they can be a superpower of yours, right? That can really change. You're doing important work, right? Your need for love is an important call. It's like, wow, she's able to love big. That's cool. That's a superpower. I love women who can love big. And that's, if you're here today, that is you. If this topic appealed to you and you feel that lack in that, that desire to overcome that and experience that connection, you're a woman who loves big. So the worthiness is more about recognizing what a beautiful gift you have. And so we're going to harness that gift. It's kind of like having the power to fly and not really having, learned how to use it, right? You're gonna jump off, go soaring, little, maybe crash into some trees or here and there. So we're gonna learn how to take that gift and how to fly with it, so that we don't get beat up by the trees and the falls and all that kind of stuff. So when it comes to taking responsibility for yourself and your feelings, sometimes we can hear that and we think, oh, I have to do it all myself, right? Or I can't use other people, or I can't share with them, right? I have to be closed off from them and just take care of it myself. And that's not at all what we're talking about. But to recognize that my sense of security, my happiness, my sense of, am I lovable? Am I loved? Am I worthy? That's my job. It's my job. It's not my mother's job, my father's job, my children's job, my friend's job. It's not my boss's job to make me feel loved and worthy and valuable. And it's certainly not my partner's job. But wait a minute, why are we in relationships? Isn't that why we're in relationships? Well, it has been a lot of why we seek relationship, because we want to feel loved and valuable and worthy and validated and all of the things. But that's not the source, the true source of love and worthiness and validation. It has to come from you first. And as I said, that does not mean that we are self-sufficient. We don't need this love of other people. Of course we do. That's I'm not even going to anywhere near that. But only you are in charge of whether you're feeling loved and valuable, worthy, and special, and all of those things. And when we take that responsibility off of the other person and take it back for ourselves, now we're free. Me and this other person are free to just experience love. There's no more obligation on them to figure out what I need in that moment to feel loved. And also, can you imagine how, and maybe you've not appreciated this before, but if your lovability, your worth, your specialness rests in the hands of someone else, you're never going to feel secure. You're never, ever going to feel secure. Even when you're laying in their arms and they're petting your head and saying, oh my gosh, you're the most wonderful thing in the world. Yes, that can feel good, but you're not actually going to feel the real security, because you know that it's still in their hands. It's precarious, right? And you're thinking about potentially, how long is this going to last? Oh my gosh, this is so wonderful. But what about, when next week when they go on that trip, or when we have to get back to whatever, your mind's going to immediately go to the places of where it hasn't been in the past, or this is fleeting. And I want to hang on to it so much, right? Sometimes we can't even enjoy that beautiful head petting session because we're so worried about the fact that it might not be there tomorrow. And so to really understand that we're no longer taking our worth and our lovability and handing it over to anybody. And there's a part of us inside that says, I just want to feel loved and worthy and valuable and special and enough. And that part, right? We take it out and we say, here, do something with this part, right? And first of all, that is such a tall order for anyone else. They don't, first of all, they don't know what it takes to make this part feel all of those things. Number two, what about when they are having a moment, when they're having a day, when they lack the energy, when they're feeling, whatever it is that they're feeling and not able to give it? Now they're feeling whatever they're feeling and they failed us, and they know it. They know when there's, when we're wanting more from them, when we're not feeling special. And then that creates, you can tell, a lot of tension within the relationship, and you're not able to be in that space of just enjoying each other and enjoying love. It's like, I need this from you, you're not giving it to me. And even if you're not using those words, or even have the consciousness that that's what's happening, it's coming through, on both ends. And you may feel, that from them. You come home from a hard day of work, say, and they're in a needy space. And even if they don't say, I'm in a needy space, or whatever, things are not going to match up, right? But if you're in a relationship with yourself, and you are always worthy, and you are always enough, and you are always special, and you have a resource to tap into, that reminds you that offers you that pours that into you, then you're going to be able to show up in that space much differently, to receive whatever might be there. And if it's a time where there isn't that pouring into you, you're going to be okay, right? Because you've taken the time, you've done the work to develop that relationship with yourself. Okay. It's absolutely cultivating this part of you and the relationship with yourself, so that you're always worthy and special and lovable, is absolutely essential to having a healthy relationship. No one has a healthy relationship without this being established for yourself. Um, I'm just looking at some of my notes here. Yeah, again, it's not that it's the only source, right? Your connection with yourself is not the only source of this, but it is your job to make sure that it's provided. Okay. Now, until you own the responsibility for this, honor it and own it and agree to take responsibility for it, you're not going to feel safe and secure, right? It's not a possible scenario. So I'm just curious at this point, because I remember when I first really started to sink my teeth into this idea that it was my job, some things came to mind for me. And these are very common for others as well. The first one was, it doesn't feel good when I offer it to myself. It doesn't feel real. I don't know how to do that for myself, right? these are some of the things that we have to look at and have to overcome when we do decide that we're going to take on the responsibility for ourselves. Anybody else ever experience those thoughts, or maybe you have some other thoughts that when I talk about taking responsibility for your own sense of lovability, worthiness, specialness, etc. Anybody have kind of a reaction to that, or a thought or an insight around that? I think it's a whole new paradigm shift to take responsibility for that for yourself. Maybe you have a question about what do I mean when I say that. Yeah, just keep that in mind. That's something that, you can bring up at any point in our time today. You can bring that up later as you kind of contemplate and really think about what does it mean to take responsibility for my lovability, right? And there, I'll just say, there's a couple of, and actually, as we move into 4, we kind of start to answer that question. What does it look like to be that source for yourself? Okay, so maybe that'll bring a little bit more clarity. But the fourth,
I
oh,
was gonna say, like they say you can't give what you don't have. And so you have to be able to cultivate that love within yourself for yourself first before you can express it to anyone else, and before you're even able to accept it from anyone else. You have to be able to accept it from yourself.
yeah,
And that's the only way you're going to have fulfilling relationships, is if you first work on the relationship you have with yourself.
absolutely. I love that. You're so right. And we also have another note in the chat that says, I used to feel that way, but practice taking responsibility for my needs and wants. Yeah. And has this helped with my discomfort with that? Absolutely. Yeah. When we can show up for ourselves and start to do that in meaningful ways, we really do. It gets easier, and the discomfort around that. It's a practice. It's not something that you just begin doing. And overnight you think, oh gosh, wow, I showed up for myself yesterday. I'm done with that. That was awesome. It's something that's ongoing. Sometimes it will be easier. Sometimes it will be difficult to even know what you need in a situation. But that's where the persistency and the consistency really come into play. I also like what you said, you can't give what you don't have. And, I used to really struggle with that because I knew I didn't love myself, but I thought to myself, but I do love these people. What kind of awful monster am I that I don't love my children and my partner and my family? Like I didn't want to hear that because I didn't want to think of myself as not loving them. And so I offer to you, when I did learn how to love myself, what Nicole is sharing is 100% spot on true. We can't give what we don't have, right? But there's a certain love, right? A certain affection and things that we can give, but true connection, true real connection only comes after you develop that connection with yourself. And having been on both sides of love, right? The kind of love that I could offer when I didn't love myself, seeing what that was like. I was doing my best. There's no judgment around what I was offering, but wow, the kind of love and connection that I can provide from this place of self-love and responsibility, it's not even comparable, right? So it's something, once you experience it, then you say, oh, now I get it. Okay, yeah, that wasn't my full capacity to love, right? And that's okay. So this identify, or step number 4, right? Okay, we took responsibility. Now what? We identify your core needs. And this is something that you're going to have to flush out with that part of you, with the parts of you that have needs. And it may take a little bit of time. But once you really, see what it is that you want to make you feel the way you want to feel, you say, I want to feel loved. Okay, awesome. What makes you feel loved? Okay, and really think about that. Somebody might say, one thing would be touch. Touch makes me feel validated, valued, cared for, right? Calms my nervous system. Or someone might say, I want to feel like I matter, right? That I have some importance in somebody's life. Okay, what makes you feel like you matter? And go through the list, how you want to feel, what makes you feel that way. One thing, so if you say what makes me feel mattered, you might put down things like when I'm listened to without distraction, when someone's really, eye to eye with me, not kind of half looking at their phone, half watching TV, walking around doing something else. I like it when they're sitting with me, when I'm communicated with, there's back and forth conversation where the person is kind of repeating back to me what I'm sharing with them and I feel truly understood. Okay, these are the kinds of things that we can identify for ourselves. And that list could be quite long and extensive, and that's okay. I'm just sharing a couple little examples just to give you some idea of what you can be looking for. And then once you've identified the needs, right, really go back, reaffirm that this is your responsibility to get the need met. Doesn't mean that you're going to do all of the need meeting, but it means it's your responsibility. Okay. So here's how you provide for your needs. Number one, how can I provide more of this for myself? How can I do this? Okay. With touch, touch from self is very powerful, right? Where might I be blocking touch? Have I helped people see that they are literally holding themselves away from touch by not reaching out to their partners, right? Because they feel like they need to protect against them for fear of rejection, right? Um, Sometimes we're blocking ourselves from some of these things that are available to us, right? So again, I might say touch might be possible from my partner, even if it's my touch to them, right? But I don't do that because I'm afraid of being rejected. Or I say to myself, well, if they're not initiating it, then it doesn't count, right? I don't want to have to be the one to initiate it. I want to be the one, that's sought out and it's given to, right? And what we're literally doing there is blocking it from ourselves. So we need to look at that underneath, why am I doing that? What is going on here that needs to be uncovered and then resolved so that I'm not blocking something that I've identified as a need for me, touch. There's a well-known law that if we want more of something, we should give it out and then watch it come back to us. If we're talking about being listened to, ask the question, how much are you listening to yourself? How much are you really making time to converse with yourself? So much of the lack we feel that we expect from other people, we can offer to ourselves. Are you making time to sit with yourself, with your journal, with the other modalities and tools that you like to use to really hear from yourself? That's number one. How can I provide more of this to myself? Okay. And then you can ask yourself, where can I get more of what I want from sources other than my partner? Okay. Other than the one that I'm seeking it from, where can I get it from other places? Right. It's very unreasonable. We set ourselves up in relationship. It's kind of sad, really. We have lives now that are so busy, right? We don't have necessarily time, space, energy for a community of people. We might have our few friends or whatever, but really day to day people that we're close to, in community with, right? But then we think, okay, I have my partner and they need to fulfill all of these needs for me, right? We're living in a stressed out kind of environment. We have lots of needs because of that. We don't have the time, space, energy. It's just not our way anymore to live in community. A lot of our jobs are very focused. So there's not as much collaboration. We're not sitting around the circle weaving things together or gathering and doing the kinds of things where we get a lot of beautiful connection. And then we put it all on our significant other or on, our very small group and say, okay, you got to meet all these needs. So I would encourage you here to look at your needs and then say, where can I get that more of that out in the world from other sources, right? If we're talking about touch, massage, touching other people, shaking hands, just resting a hand on someone's shoulder and just kind of opening to that with others. If we're talking about being listened to, do you have those resources in your circle where you feel really listened to? If not, it's great to cultivate some of that. Some relationships that would give you other avenues to truly be heard and seen, right? Instead of putting it all on our partners. That's some kind of, fairy tale um, definition of what a relationship would be. They should be able to meet all of my needs. And it's just not true. It doesn't make sense. It hasn't been that way throughout, ages and in ages. It was never meant to be this one person's going to fulfill all of my needs. And we think there's something wrong with the relationship when that doesn't happen. So number 2, where can I get more of that from other sources? Okay. Number 3, then once you've done those things and you're starting to, maybe take the edge off of some of the need to put that on your partner to receive something particular, then you can approach how to get more of what you need from your partner, still remembering it's not their responsibility to make you feel a certain way, but it's also beautiful for us to show up for one another, to meet each other's needs, right? That's not a bad thing. I'm not suggesting that that's not something that we want to do for them and them for us. How wonderful that we can do that, but remembering it's not his responsibility to do that, to make me feel XYZ. But I love that we can share this moment here together. And you can get really skillful in how you ask for that, getting your needs met. And when I say skillful, I mean in a way that respects the person that you're asking. Okay. So let's just say we're talking about your partner and you want more time, attention, attentiveness. Okay. Your partner, so you can develop skillful ways of getting more of those things that allow you to feel good, that allow you to share that, right? Not getting because you have to fill this bucket, you have to fill this need, but because, oh, this is lovely. I love that we share these moments together. It's about sharing, right? One point that I'll say is this always applies is that we never want to ask for something in any way that makes the other person feel like they're doing a poor job, right? To come to them and say, you never listened to me, right? Or I really need to be listening to, or oh, wouldn't it be nice if you did this and this once in a while? Those are the kinds of things that sometimes, if we're not honoring our needs or we're having that expectation that it's their responsibility, that's how it can come across sometimes, right? So if we can be skillful about it and we can ask for things and give the other person an opportunity to bring us joy, to be our hero, right? To not tear them down in ways that where we judge them for not being or for being, deficient in some way. So this also requires that we don't have expectations for people, right? That they have to meet our needs in a way that's exactly as we would want them to be met, right? We can leave a little room for them to show up in ways that are authentic to them. Okay. So for example, I've been working with a woman for a while on this issue. And one of the things that made her feel really insecure with her husband is that she felt like he didn't listen to her. Okay, so and there was a lot of resentment around it. And so there was most of the time when she wanted to be listened to, she went into that situation kind of with all the past times that she didn't feel listened to. So expecting that he wasn't going to be attentive and feeling frustrated about that. So already she comes in, kind of with those with the hairs up, just kind of frustrated, like, oh, I feel like I'm not going to get my need met again, and it's going to be really disappointing, right? And all the times that he's failed. So we worked on this for a while and went through these steps and started to become a little bit more skillful in the ways that she provided things for herself, that being listened to deeply, and how to be skillful about it. So then she had an experience where she said she came home from conference on a Saturday. She was super excited to share all that she had learned. It had given her a lot of ideas and things that she wanted to implement in her business. And she really identified that being heard and being able to share more of her career with her husband was one of those core needs that she really wanted to get met. Right. So she couldn't wait to share this. She had something that she knew she could connect with him over. So when she got home, her husband was in the middle of watching a basketball game. It was his team, right? He greeted her, asked how the conference was, but he had one eye on the TV the whole time, that, that they were greeting each other. And so in the past, this was one of those situations where immediately she felt that sense of insecurity. And she went to a place of, oh, he doesn't listen to me, my needs aren't being met. And maybe she wasn't running through this list in her conscious mind, but subconsciously this is what was going on. I don't feel heard, I don't feel loved. Is this even the man for me? He doesn't meet my needs. And then she was able to kind of catch that and remind herself, oh yeah, what I'm saying is worthy of being listened to. This is a valid need of mine. How can I, because I have the responsibility for getting this need met, which is and I'm worthy of this. How can I get this need met? So here's how she experienced this. She said that she could see he was in the middle of the game, right? He tried to seem as interested as he could, right? So she kind of appreciated that. And she recognized, in the past, I would have been so hurt by the fact that he was obviously emotionally invested in the game and not ready to turn it off and sit and put all attention on her, right? That would have been very hurtful to her. So she would have pushed against him, pushed him in an aggressive way. Hey, pay attention to me. This is important, what I'm trying to tell you. And all you care about is, the game. Probably complained to him, you never make time for me again. So that's that asking for your needs to be met, or demanding, should I say, your needs to be met in a way that uh, makes the other person feel like they're a failure instead of giving them the opportunity to be your hero. And then they would have gotten into a Cold War, with neither of them speaking to each other for at least several hours, right? And she said in that moment, like, she saw it all playing out, like, oh gosh, wow, it flashed before her. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to stomp off to my room. He's going to not even be able to enjoy the rest of his game. We're going to be cold to each other. I'm probably not going to share anything about the conference because it's just going to be really awkward, even, when we do start talking to each other again. So she said this time, she felt that urge rise, and she remembered that it's not his responsibility to make her feel loved, or to make what she had inside her, what she wanted to share, to make her feel like that was valuable, and that, it had a place. And she remembered, this is my responsibility. So she let her loving adult higher self part, right? And that's something that we can talk about, remind her that she was deeply loved. She was cared for. Her thoughts were important, right, to her. And she knew that that was a resource that she had available to her all the time. Then at that point, she immediately felt much calmer. She was able to see that he wasn't being unloving. He's just into his ball game. And from this place of power and self-sufficiency, I gave him a kiss on the forehead, told him I couldn't wait to share all about what I had learned after the game was over. He said he couldn't wait either, and that he would come find me as soon as the game was over, which he did. Meanwhile, I did go to my room, but only so I could journal some of the ideas that had come to me through the day. I felt so loved and cared for by myself and by him. She said, the whole world is different now. Our relationship is so different now that I have relieved him of the responsibility to make me feel lovable and loved. We can now enjoy each other, and I can appreciate the love that he does give me. It was such a beautiful example of how these steps play out and create new situations, new experiences with people and opportunities to see love and to be love with each other. The skill here came in not expecting the husband to be available for a deep conversation right when she wanted it. Another skill was to ask for what you want. Oh, you can make it look like you're just commenting on how much you love it when your partner does the things that you do like. So, if he does walk by and put a hand on your back, be sure to let him know in that way. Oh my gosh, that, when you walk by and you put your hand on, that felt so good. I really love when you do that. Kind of using those opportunities when something does go right, to really cement in how much you appreciate that, right? That's going to be something they're going to want to do that much, much more. Another example that I had was a husband who played video games a lot. It was, it might have been a problem, meaning, it was something that really sucked up. It felt like an avoidance, distractive kind of behavior that he was kind of struggling with, right? So this wife felt very ignored, felt very unimportant to this husband. And so she would go to bed every night kind of fantasizing about the husband who would give her love and attention at night, right? And this was something that was very painful and was creating more and more space between them as the days went on, because she, I have this need, he's not interested in me. And so he's picking up on that. He knows that he's a failure. This is creating in him the need to distract even more, right? And so the situation's getting worse and worse as days goes on. And so kind of applying the steps and going through, they reached a little deal. He's liked to stay up late, she liked to go to bed a little bit early, and there wasn't any of that commingling time where they felt the connection. So using the skills, using her ability to take responsibility, she was able to identify, hey, if you could, when I'm ready for bed, if you could take a break and be with me for 15 or 20 minutes, it's okay for you to get up and to go back to your game, because I feel like that's a beautiful time that we can share, and that's something that they are able to connect over, and to be able to, both of them, right, feel good about their compromise, so to speak. And if you want something that's a big ask from your partner, something that's very different from the way that they usually show up in the world, it might be a good idea to start small and ask for the little things that might lead them up. Because if it's uncomfortable to them, when I say a big ask, maybe, I really want you to share more of your internal world. Say that to most men, and that will be, a huge, a sense of pressure, first of all, a sense of what the hell am I going to say? That can be a big ask. And so just asking the little things, for you to use your skills to say, okay, what are some of the questions that I might like to know? I'm not going to, dump this great big, share more of your internal world. I want us to be more emotionally connected. For your person, right? You may need to break it down and just ask little questions that don't feel like this big thing. I don't know how to do that, he may think. And so just, really thinking about some of the ways that can skillfully meet the person and their needs, the way that they are in the world, right? Um, I would also say, always let your partner know when they do things you like. I already mentioned that. Let them be heroes, right? That's such an important point. Always assume the best of them. Do not let yourself make up stories about what things mean. Me and I talked about this a little bit last time, but we make up so many stories about what people's silence means, what people's bad moods mean, right? If they're in a bad mood, oh my gosh, it means they're not happy. I'm not enough to make them, happy and smiley all the time. Or, just notice that. Notice the stories that you tell yourself and know that 99% of your stories are not true, right? I love the work of Byron Katie here. Her work, her kind of her uh, seminal work, which is called Loving What Is. And she really goes into this topic of storytelling and not assuming that the things that our mind might tell us are true. Um, yeah. So there are a lot of things that come up when we start to apply these steps, right? This is a framework from which we can kind of start and kind of have this conversation, but there's a lot of roadblocks within each. Let's be realistic, right? These are all of these things are based on old patterns, right? Things that we've always done, things that we were taught, the ways that we were related to. So it isn't that, you're going to take these and just, as I was saying in the beginning, just immediately apply these and say, oh my gosh, this is so great. This is so easy, right? There's a lot of other kind of sub pieces to this. And one of them I mentioned, which was, going to your higher self in order to find that resource for you. The one that takes responsibility for you feeling loved, worthy, etc. It's your higher self. You have to have that close relationship with your higher self, because that's the source of how you're going to feel loved. When I told you that when I first heard about this and was trying to apply it in my own life, and I said, I don't know how to do that. It doesn't feel right when I give it to myself. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't satisfy anything. It's because I hadn't yet developed that relationship with my higher self. And so, as this is the higher self being a foundation for so many of the tools and modalities, practices that we teach, Mia and I decided that we wanted to offer a real space to explore the higher self, to teach you some ways in to call that in and to develop and cultivate that relationship in a really strong way. Because if you're going to do things like overcome insecurities in your relationship and many, many others, you need to have that as a foundational piece. So we've put together a half-day retreat on the 24th of February. We've also decided to almost give it away. It's $79 for, which something like this was usually around $297. But we really just wanted to, so much of what we teach and talk about is based on the higher self. And so we're like, let's get as many people with this skill as possible right now and really offer that. And so February 24th, we're going to put the link so you can check it out a little bit more in with the replay for this class. And so I really encourage you, take a look at that and ask yourself, how is that relationship with your higher self? Do you feel like you can draw on that? Do you feel like that is, yes, I can go to that place to receive the love and the validation that I need and deserve, so that I can free my relationships of needing to provide that for me. Because as I said in the beginning, you're never going to feel secure in your relationship without that. It's just not possible. No relationship can give it to you. Now there's a spectrum, right? Some relationships can give more of that, of course, but if you really want to experience that deep connection and that self-sufficiency and that confidence of knowing I am always okay, and relationships really thrive in that space. There's nothing sexier than a woman who doesn't need you, doesn't need a partner, a man or woman, whatever, to take responsibility for me. Like when they're free of that, they just get to experience, you guys get to experience, love. And then I'm talking about a partnership, but of course it applies with family and friends and children and parents and every relationship that we have. So check out the retreat. If you have any questions, let us know, because it really is something that so many of our other teachings and stuff really rely on that relationship. It's a big game changer to have that internal resource of your higher loving self right there for you, providing for those needs. Because the answer isn't, how do I get rid of my needs, right? Your needs are good. Your needs are beautiful. Your needs are, like I said, a way that love can be channeled out into the world. So we're not going to take away your needs at all. We're going to refine them, and we're going to learn how to deeply, deeply meet them from a place of that you control, that you are in charge of, and that is the higher self. I have 4 books that have been really pivotal, and I often recommend them to people. And, I picked 4 because I really think they offer a little bit different perspective. And I have pulled from all of them, and others, to kind of do this work for myself. I'll mention them here, but we'll also put them in the replay email. One is Real Love by Greg Bear. The second one, I want to get I think I wrote down from my memory, what it was called, and I want to make sure that I give you the right one. Another one, oh gosh, this was the best one ever. I really love this book. It's called You Are the One You've Been Waiting For. This is Richard Schwartz. And as you know, he's the creator of IFS, or parts work. And this book is parts work applied to this very question that we are talking about. If you're only going to read one of these books, this is definitely the one. The other one is The Power of Attachment by Diane Poole Heller. She is just phenomenal, and her book really gave me that permission to honor that number one, that I talked about, which is, just accepting. This is how I come wired. And she doesn't go into the superpower part. That's kind of my own spin on it, but really giving me that permission to honor, this is how I'm wired. I can come this way for many reasons, and it's okay, right? I don't have to get rid of these needs. I can learn to work with them, and I can learn how to become more securely attached through meeting my own needs, through being skillful in getting my needs, getting lovely experiences with others. So that is a wonderful one. And the last one is the one I mentioned, Byron Katie, Loving What Is. So it feels like a lot of material maybe, but you know what? It's so worth it. This topic is changed not only all of the relationships for people, for myself, for other people, but it's just one that brings a lot more security to you in general, right? Becoming, what me and I always say, becoming firmly rooted. The skills that you learn here, the way you apply it here, you start to trust yourself so much more. Things open up. So it is worthwhile. It's just such a great topic to devote yourself to. It's something that we do a lot of this work in the Academy, in the Greatest You Academy. As many of you know, that is a 12-module course that helps you identify. I said there was a lot of other pieces to this that might come up that need our attention in order to be really successful with these steps. So that's always something, a resource that's available to you. Any questions before we wrap up our teaching today? I see some beautiful love in the chat. Thank you for that. I love being here with you guys. I know that that just the fact that you're here is such an inspiration. It's so beautiful to see souls coming and offering that to themselves, because I know that the work that you do for yourself is work that's sent out into the world. You have no idea probably how much you impact the world around you. But as you're doing this work for yourself, you're doing it for all of us. So I appreciate you. Beautiful. Okay. Well, we'll wrap up today, and please remember that you may have some questions as you start to dig into this work a little bit, and they're absolutely welcome In fact, that's the exciting part for us when we see this getting applied. So we are here to answer those questions. Okay, well, look forward to next week, and please check out the retreat. It's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, even if you can't be live in the day on that day, we priced it $79. It's worth the replay, which you would get. We'd love to see you there. We've planned a lot of really incredible experiences in the day, and a place for you to be with other people and other higher selves. So we're looking forward to it. All right. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Tuesday.